Will you start the recording again, Ricarda?
Already started.
Oh, it started. Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is the second part of our GRALE 6 Open Consultation, Civil Society Engagement, ensuring our voices are heard. And so I'd like, again, for those who are listening or just joining us, I know some people may have left. I'd like to, again, welcome you to this co-hosted, co-organized session that the International Council, together with our members, the DVV International and CEAAL, and other regional organizations who spread the word wide, and hence very big responses in terms of beyond the numbers of the typical room that we have. So if you're listening to us because you're not able to join us in person, we thank you very much. And so my name is Jose Roberto Guevara. Everybody calls me Robbie. I'm the president of the International Council for Adult Education, and I bring you greetings from Melbourne, Australia, from the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, on whose unceded lands that I speak to you from. And so I'd like to acknowledge that each of you are coming from your own particular lands and experiences that you bring in terms of the commitment to adult learning and education. We just had, and I hope you would have listened to the previous hour, where we have just observed and we were just given a different view, I would say, from the, if I recall, a few years ago before Confrontia, a very different view in terms of what GRALE is meant to be. I think part of that is the openness of the UIL, the colleagues in UIL, to be able to craft a GRALE process that they say is more participatory and more inclusive, within the boundaries, of course, of the limitations that they have as a commitment that they have in terms of that it's national governments that are members of UIL. And yet there is a clear commitment to civil society participation, very clear in terms of the open consultation, very clear in terms of recommending that aside from the national focal points for the upcoming trainings and capacity building, is that the national focal point should identify a civil society representative as part of that process. And so these are just signs. And as we said, these are just opportunities for us to ensure that civil society voices are actually heard. And to ensure our voice is heard, what do we want to be able to say? We do recognize that as part of ICAE, as a global organization, we really value national, local, and regional voices. So what we are doing today is we will start with initially an overview of what, from the global perspective, we have identified a few key points that we'd like you to keep in mind as you respond to the open consultation process. Okay, but not just for the open consultation, but as the ongoing element in terms of the actual collection of data for GRALE. After this, I'd like to, so Katarina from our Secretary General of ICAE, and Uwe, the Director of DVV, will share some of the key advocacy points that we talked about or we have identified. The second part of the session is we have experiences from the regions, from Elsy Wakil and also from Cecilia Palm, in terms of there has also been action in the regions and in the different countries already. And so we'd like to be able to capture what has been happening in the response to the open consultation. Some regions have already started organizing events, started organizing discussions. Okay. And then also in terms of the end is terms of what do we do as we move forward, initially for the open consultation, but ensuring also that our voices are heard, not just for the consultation, but for the GRALE process itself. So let's not forget that if we launch today the call to be able to make our voice heard, it's not just for the open consultation. We need to make our voices heard even throughout the GRALE collection, data collection process. And so I'd like to welcome Katarina and Uwe, who will do their song in that, like their duet around the presentation. Thanks, Katarina, and thanks, Uwe.
Thank you, Robbie, for introduction. Uwe and I did it a few times already, so I hope we will manage this time as well. So as you have heard, I'm Katarina Popović, Secretary General of International Council for Adult Education, and I'm coming from the country whose origins and the land is not so important, but I would like to say that I'm coming from the country, Serbia, where we have at the moment the biggest civic and student protest for democracy, peace, freedom and rule of law in Europe, and it might be also the biggest in the world. Just 2 days ago, I participated in the big action where we were almost half 500,000 people in the on the streets. So My Bad Voices is the product of the campaign Make Our Voices Be Heard, and I took it literally. So a bit of a shouting, and I ask for your forgiveness for that. So I will, as Robbie has nicely announced, we would like to help our members to contribute, to assist them in contributing to the consultation process. And of course, we recognize and we are proud of the diversity in ICAE, but we just would like to remind you of some of the main key points of our mission, our vision, our main values, and the way how they could be included in the consultation process. So this presentation that Uwe and I will share with you is based on that, on the main values, and this is a kind of a reminder and a kind of assistance to the contribution, although we do not have the answers. So the presentation will follow the structure that we were given, and the rest will, of course, be on you to work on this. So I hope you can see it now. Is it okay? You can see it? Yeah, good. Okay. So ensuring that our voices are heard and GRALE Open Consultation. And as we already know, there is this concept note in our advocacy guide. We are sharing also the links that you can find it. And we remind you also on the GRALE, a little bit of the GRALE and what it is. We share the links here. We heard already about the development of GRALE, and we heard a lot from Nicolas how the GRALE did change. As far as we follow the development of Confiter process and the GRALE, this is probably the biggest change in the way the data is collected and how they will be presented and structured due to the current changes in the landscape, adult education policy landscape, but also due to the technology. So let me start with a kind of overall feedback. That's the first question that you will be asked when you open the questionnaire. And there are a few points that from the perspective of ICAE and the perspective of civil society are important. It was mentioned that already that we are really glad that adult learning education is seen in the context of right to education. And we never forget how important it is. And one of our first comments relates also to adult learning education as a part of education sector. So it's not just lifelong learning as a principle, as a philosophy that we do appreciate and that we have embraced, but also education as a sector, because this is the best way to have a good position to advocate for the right to education, regardless the age and other factors, of course, excluding all the discrimination. So that's what we would like to highlight, and that's what across the whole document and the consultation process, and later on we would like also you to remind UNESCO it's about right to education, and it's about adult learning education in the context of lifelong learning philosophy, based on the principles of lifelong learning, but not losing adult education or adult learning and education as a sector, as a field of education, as sector of education policy. And we were really glad to see that in the concept note of new GRALE, this is acknowledged in that way. It was mentioned, and we would also like our members and partners in contributing to remind UNESCO that the GRALE 6 should assess progress in implementing Marrakesh Framework for Action and the recommendation for adult learning education, and not just monitoring the progress. You know that it's the weakness of the whole Sustainable Development Goals approach that it's very much focused on monitoring, which is of course important. Nothing we can do without the proper data, but it's about implementation also. Otherwise, we will not have anything or not enough practices to monitor. And we also remind UNESCO that there is a need to identify concrete mechanisms to translate findings into the policy action. And we hope that you will draw in your contributions, that you will draw the attention of UNESCO to the either existing mechanisms or the need to develop more mechanisms to translate these findings. Again, a comparison to another policy instrument, SDGs, on a more global level. This is the main weakness, and we want to avoid this danger, this translation or the gap that needs to be bridged from the global policy action, which is a global policy document, with the national and regional level. So we invite you either to show those mechanisms, to show cast, to present them, or to invite UNESCO to identify them or to help regions to identify them in case those mechanisms are missing. Now this is the feedback on the feedback on the main theme, and the main theme is of course adult learning education in times of rapid change. Oh, sorry, this is still, since I don't see the. Okay, sorry, this is still the overall feedback. I don't see the title here. And the part of the oral feedback is the process per se. And we did talk about the participation and how participatory this process should be. At the moment, it's going well with this invitation to contribute, but we would like also to remind UNESCO that the process should be participatory, the process of selection of the case studies. Nicolas has announced the invitation for the case studies, and we want to make sure that not only governmental practices, but also civil society practices are reflected. And now the main part, probably the most sensitive part, is about the methodology, the most sensitive from the point of view of civil society, and having in mind the announced changes in the GRALE 6 methodology. We do welcome and we do embrace the invitation for more quantitative data and data about institutionalized learning. But at the same time, we would like GRALE 6 to contain more data about the types of learning that are typical for the civil society, for the local communities, for the community-based learning, for the indigenous learning, and for the informal learning contents, systems, practices, and so on. There is a whole range of life-wide learning. There is a learning within the social movement, grassroots initiatives. We in Serbia are facing it currently now. We have currently a civic education of adults in a massive way, and this type of practices should be included. So this need for more strict data, more quantitative data, should not undermine and should not make us miss the data coming from other parts of the education and learning sector, including especially, of course, practices from the civil society. So we advocate for balanced methodologies, and we encourage you to provide UNESCO not only quantitative data like indicators and statistics, but also qualitative evidences and practices that would give the full picture of what's going on at the grassroots level. And we also invite UNESCO, and we encourage you to provide this type of data coming from the researches led by civil society organizations and participatory methodologies. We know that ICAE members and partners are very strong in participatory methodologies, so we invite you to provide this type of data to UNESCO. Now, feedback on the main theme, and the main theme is, as you know, adult learning education in times of a rapid change. So the shift from the crisis approach, and this is the shift that we really do welcome, because adult learning education is seen as a proactive force, and it's not just the tool to adapt to the crises, and crises are coming one after the other, and it became a normal pattern of life. So we don't want to stick to this crisis rhetorics and crisis approach, but to see ICAE as a proactive force to the constant changes of the world we live in. What we would like to remind them through our contributions is that this rapid change should be seen beyond economic and technological shift. Nicolas did talk about that, and of course, we do recognize the importance of economic and technological changes, but we want to expand the understanding of a change and to include social, political, cultural transformations. So we accept the idea and the shift to the rapid change, but at the same time, we would like to challenge this understanding that rapid change is external and it's inevitable. So like something that comes as a natural catastrophe, something that we simply have to accept and to see what is the best way to react. So adult learning education should be seen as a tool for critical engagement with this change. And it's about enabling individuals and communities to understand, to question, to go deeper, and to see the causes and the roots, and to see the influences that forces shaping their lives, and then to be able also to react or to act with these forces and with the roots, and to challenge them and not just wait for the change to happen. So there is, if you don't do this, there will be a risk that learning education is framed as a reactive. So changes are happening, especially economic technological changes, and adult learning education is for workforce adaptation. Again, we heard this from Nicolas, how important it is, and we do recognize the importance of this workforce adaptation, but it should be much more than that. It should not be reactive. So the reports, GRALE, based on our inputs, should highlight the role of adult learning education and shaping in the directing the change and being in active relationship with the causes and with the roots, reflecting them and impacting them on time, not just coping with those changes. Continuation of this reflection on the main theme, adult learning education in time of rapid change, we would also invite you to remind UNESCO on different and diverse educational paradigms and learning traditions. So they usually do not come, or very often, they do not come from member states and from the government. So if we do that, so there is this framing would slip into the reinforcing Western centering and digital first narratives. And that's what's not in the nature of ICAE, and that's not for our partners and our members. We want this report, based on our contribution, to recognize the full spectrum of lifelong learning approaches. We want it to include indigenous and community-based learning and the educational paradigm, and in order to be able to support resilience and agency in diversities of context that ICAE's members have. And of course, gender was mentioned, and we are sure that it will remain important for UNESCO, but do not forget to provide the data disaggregated based on gender, and to point out the specific of gender issues in diverse contexts, because even the gender question based on the values that we respect, but it's different in different contexts, and do not hesitate to highlight these diversities. And finally, to the rapid change, we should not forget to remind UNESCO that investments must match this ambition to have adult learning education as the best tool to cope with the changes. So it refers to governments and to international organizations. They need to be sure to provide sustainable financial structures so AIL can fulfill this role in coping with those challenges. And AIL remains flexible, inclusive, forward-looking, and not just some kind of a short-term topic of a project-based funding cycle that we see very much in the development cooperation. So do remind UNESCO on that. And then I go to the feedback on specific themes. You will see, you have heard that there are 4 main themes, and of course there will be more single questions, and we don't know yet which they are, but still there are some general issues and general things that we can say about those themes. And I will start with the digitalization. Of course, very important, and it's in everyone's mouth. So we are recognizing the importance and the power of digitalization, artificial intelligence. At the same time, we would like to warn UNESCO on the risk of overemphasizes digitalization and artificial intelligence. And we know about the potential to outreach, and we will report that. But at the same time, we are aware of the risk to sideline different forms of learning that are not included or not captured through the digitalization. For example, community-based learning, experiential education. There is a range of skills that cannot be learned through digitalization. There are social and emotional skills. There is civic education, intercultural education, increasing agency of adult and older learners in different contexts. So all those things that are in the risk of being lost because of the overemphasis of digitalization, and we should remind UNESCO of that. And in that context, ICAE emphasizes that building the adult learning education systems, and that's what we want, that's what we strive to, requires much more than just integrate technology and develop digital skills. There are various forms of learning and education, and especially those forms that nurture agency and all types of civic education, interculturalism, peace that is pretty much neglected, well-being, social participation, so being included through the digitalization, participating through the digital forms in the online learning, it's still not participation and doesn't mean increasing agency. So we will report, I hope, to UNESCO about what we have achieved through the technology, but we should also remind them about huge range of learning education practices that were developed in beyond the digitalization. So I will stop here and give the floor to Uwe.
Thank you, Katarina. But can you go on with sharing the screen from your side, please? It makes things easier. I would love to share with you that I am also, my voice is gone because of some mass demonstrations here in my country, but unfortunately it's more of my personal health issue that I have a little bit of problem with my voice today. I excuse for this, but I hope that we can you can listen to me easily. The second topic in the GRALE concept is ALE and economic shifts towards a just green transition. And here we would like to emphasize that reducing adult education to a tool for the labor market might be or is definitely not an adequate perception of what adult learning and education can look for. The GRALE positions adult learning and education as a means to navigate economic transitions. However, we think it's not only about navigating, but also about shaping the economic transition. While GRALE acknowledges that ALE is more than just workforce training, much of the framing aligns with economic utility rather than education as a space for social transformation, empowerment, and lifelong participation. I think this is an important, very important point for all of us, and this resonates also to some of the questions which I have seen in the chat in the first part, which were asked to Nicolas. And I listened carefully to Nicolas' answer where he says we should, of course, phrase our answers in a way, our messages in a way that they are acceptable for our audience. Maybe this is, or definitely this might be true for UNESCO. However, we as civil society organizations should be a little bit more frank in how we frame our messages. A regional approach, of course, is especially important if we look on economic shifts. We come from centuries of thinking that the Western dominant economic systems and colonial systems are the one who shape the economic shifts in the world. I think we should emphasize that today this is not acceptable, and that adult learning and education especially is also for challenging the global political economical power architecture. Next slide, please. Combating climate change through adult education is the next issue, and what I just mentioned is quite related to this issue as well. The intersection of climate change and adult learning must be understood beyond a purely technical or skills-based approach. It is fundamentally about empowering communities to critically engage with environmental policies, advocate for climate justice, and build sustainable local solutions. Critical thinking and advocacy is a key in combating climate change, and it's not just limited to adopting to what has happened in the context of the environmental crisis. Climate change is not just an environmental crisis, it is a power crisis. It is a crisis of the existing structures in our world, and this is something adult learning and education should emphasize as much as possible. And we would be more than happy if the GRALE could also emphasize on this aspect as well, being aware that this might be challenging as the UNESCO is a government-led organization. Next slide, please. Living together, ALE in conflict and post-conflict reconstruction. I was attracted to see that, recognize that Nicolas calls it peace. I mean, to be honest, in the official concept, it's called like this, and I think it makes a substantial difference. So while we see in many conflicts around the world, be it Palestine, be it Ukraine, be it Sahel, be it other parts of the world, that adult learning and education has to play a role to support people who are affected by conflicts, who are refugees, who are migrants, and so forth. It should be not reduced to a tool for an adoption to crises and conflicting or for managing instability, but it should go beyond and force for sustained social cohesion, peace, reconciliation, and empowerment. We in DVV International made a study within our project recognizing that adult learning and education has a play-to role throughout all these parts of a conflict or post-conflict or pre-conflict. The increasing militarization of global responses to conflict and security challenges make it even more urgent to reaffirm ALE's role in fostering dialogue, critical thinking, conflict prevention, and peace building. And I think this is a bit underestimated in the GRALE questionnaire, and it would be very useful if we as civil society could stress this role. Thank you. Next one. Other topics. Although it is a big step forward what we could see now with the GRALE 6, and I was very happy to see Nicolas' presentation today, making clear that there is a participatory, let's say, element in the GRALE process. I think it is still, the battle is still not won, and it's still not 100% clear how the CSO inputs will influence the final content. I think this is more a message to ICAE and to the regional networks that we should stay alert in our dialogue with the UNESCO and the UAL to make our voices heard and not just answer to a questionnaire where already now more than 1,000 answers have been given. I personally doubt a little bit what will be the influence of a single voice within this choir. To advocate for a genuine, inclusive GRALE process means that our voices should be heard not only within a consultation, an open consultation, but throughout the whole processes on the national, on the regional, and on the global level, where CSOs are not just event organizers asked for supporting UNESCO with, I don't know, interpreters or organizing an event, but where we are really shaping the agenda. So the process to finalize the process must ensure meaningful participation in defining key inputs and indicators, and the CSO's involvement in data analysis and recommendation, not just in outreach. I think we did a big step forward, and I could say that ICAE plays an instrumental role in shaping and correcting some of the elements of the GRALE process in the past. but I think there is a lot to be done still. A very good idea is that we will have regional reports, that we have also regional topics to be tackled in GRALE, additionally to the global report, which might make GRALE even more context sensitive and more relevant on a regional and national level. Thank you. I think that was the last slide. Yeah, thank you very much, and apologize again for my voice today. It's a little bit damaged. I hope you could follow. Thank you, and back to Katarina or Robbie, I'm sure.
Thank you very much, Uwe and Katarina, and for your crackling voices. I'm the Filipino in the room, and so I can sing with in a crackling voice. But I'd like just to say thank you very much. There are really interesting comments in terms of just picking up, and I encourage everyone to be able to try to then pick up some of the comments around. There is, of course, a tension around digitalization and the need that digitalization and AI it requires prerequisite literacy. So part of that, this might be something for us at ICAE to explore further, not to resolve today, but to explore what position do we really take around digitalization and the use of AI, for example. There are points also around in terms of the funding, and again, that again is something that we need to keep remembering, that there's no such thing as even this whole idea of public participation of civil society, it needs to be resourced as something that we do, but also in terms of just some of the things around the dominance of the economic models. And I'd like to thank Farrell for putting that up, the dominance of the economic model, but also in terms of the dominance of, again, the utilitarian adult learning. There's nothing wrong with adult learning that leads to jobs, but it is more than just that. So let's keep the comments going, but I'd like now to welcome colleagues in terms of, if we have time towards the end, I'll pick up some questions, but I'd like now for our colleagues, and I'd like to begin with Cecilia. When we started this open consultation, when the open consultation was around, Cecilia, who's a member of the Executive Council, also has shared that in her country there has been a movement already of interest, but also there has been questions around. So I'd like Cecilia, I don't want to summarize, but this whole interesting discussion about, do we engage? How do we effectively engage? But also then, again, this whole idea that the open consultation is also an advocacy tool for us to remind our governments that there is such a thing as GRALE and there is such a thing as adult learning. So welcome, Cecilia.
Thank you, Robbie. Thank you very much. I'm so impressed. I think I counted to over 30 countries present and from all over the world. It's so impressive, and I'm so glad to speak to all of you. I hope what I will say will be of help or encouragement. As Robbie said, I'm a member of the executive committee, and I have been since 2020. And I would like to start at that time. From the beginning, I wanted to map all stakeholders in Sweden engaged in global aid, whether public sector, meaning Swedish government, the Swedish UNESCO Commission, authorities, etc., because they could influence the process in dealing with UNESCO. And on the other hand, the Swedish members of ICAE and other stakeholders on the civil society side. And once identified, I tried to establish some kind of relationship with all of these, presenting myself as a member of ICAE and at the same time explaining what ICAE was. Because I quickly found that the knowledge about global aid, all these acronyms that we work with, RAIL and GRALE and Confintea, etc., MFA, they're not very familiar with these. And I also quickly realized that the priority given to these global aid questions was not very high. So my first objective was to learn more about this, about the area overall, but also to perhaps better understand how the Swedish stakeholders reasoned, what was their position in these in these questions. In the beginning, also rather quickly, the Swedish members were 4 organizations, put together a team, a sort of working group that could help me and my colleague representative in the regional organization ICAE. So we have all along had the support of the Swedish members. And let's say that my objective in working with these questions has been, first of all, I've had to get a solid knowledge of my own so that I can explain in rather simple terms what this is about. It's always handy to have a PowerPoint that you can show and to situate people in this global ale world, because, as I said, they are not familiar with this. I've also tried to find what the advantages for Sweden of engaging are, what they are. But it's not always obvious, so that's something to work on. My goals, all overall goals, have been to make everyone give a higher priority to questions about ale, to encourage the public sector to consult with the civil society organizations as often as possible, and to see to it that we circulate information quickly and easily in these matters. And now when the Swedish UNESCO Commission received a mail from UIL opening this survey on GRALE 6, I felt that I sort of succeeded, because the same day I received a mail from the Swedish UNESCO Commission telling me that now this consultation is open. Can you help us spread the word? And also opening, saying maybe that we should have a consultation about this. Maybe we should meet and discuss it. And then ensued some kind of confusion about what exactly was this survey. Was it addressed to the government as well, the Swedish member, as well as private stakeholders, or not? Should the consultation take place now or later? And the government concluded, the Swedish UNESCO Commission and the government, they concluded that no, this is not a survey for us as a public sector. This is for private parties. So we are very interested to hear, was what they said to me. We're very interested to hear about your reactions to this concept note, but we want to postpone the consultation with you until we have the official request for data collection. Still, they did write a very full and explicit letter or mail about the consultation, writing to all interested parties outside of the government, encouraging them to respond to the survey. And now, at this moment, I am hoping that we will receive an invitation for a consultation when when UIL has officially opened the data collection process. I don't think that will happen without effort. First of all, well, the first question mark was answered today when Nicolas said that the process would open in end of May and would go on till November. We have known previously that it has been given 1 month in midsummer when everyone is on holiday. The second thing is that we have to remind the Ministry and the Swedish UNESCO Commission that they have the intention to consult with us. And the third and not least challenge is to make the Swedish members or engaged parties give priority to this question so that they participate in the discussions, and that the meeting is held at a level where the Swedish members feel that they can participate. So these are challenges that we hope that we can overcome, and I will certainly work for it. And I wish you all success in doing something similar or better. Thank you.
Yeah, but yes, indeed, Cecilia, these are challenges, but at the same time, there are victories already. There are wins that you have indicated. And as you said, this started not just since the UIL consultation, but a few years ago, and acknowledging the role you played also in Confintia as the rapporteur. And so I think part of that is the positioning that you have placed for civil society to become visible, and in terms of and therefore consulting with you in terms of that whole process. But at the same time, there's a level of engagement in the national governments. But as you said, you need to keep reminding them. And so I guess these are really good examples or lessons that we can all have insights. Again, knowing that there are different configurations of UNESCO into different countries as well, and different levels of engagement. So thank you very much, Cecilia. So a different context from a regional, Elsy. Again, when this was announced, Elsy said, okay, there was already some meeting that was going to happen in the Arab states and all that. And so I said, oh, you're faster than us. So tell us what's happening, Elsy.
Okay, thank you, Robbie. And really, it was great to listen to Nicolas. And maybe if we listened before to Nicolas, we knew that some of our feedback and comments on the concept note will be changed. So when we received the consultation, the concept paper from UIL, we said that we need to do the first consultation with the Arab networks working on adult education, which is with the Arab House for Adult Education, having 4 different networks in the region. So we organized this consultation to be on March 10. Many of our networks have been included in this consultation. First of all, what we did, that we translated this concept paper into Arabic, because now I'm happy to listen to Nicolas said that this concept paper is existing in 6 languages now. So we were the first network or the Arab region to translate it into Arab, because, you know, many of our people don't know English or French or Spanish. So really we need to ensure that the Arab language will be, and it is also the 5th language in the UNESCO importance. So we did this consultation and we asked also 4 members to give us their opinion or views about the 4 topics highlighted in the concept paper. So as I said, the event had in March 10 brought together experts, academics, and policymakers to review key findings and recommendations. So discussion focused on how adult education can contribute to sustainable development, climate action, economic change. So the first feedback and positive aspects given to the concept paper was the clarity of structure and organization, covering key themes like economic transformations, digital learning, and community empowerment. And the second one was a comprehensive coverage of climate, digital, and social changes affecting adult learning and education. And the third one was a strong alignment with the Sustainable Development Goals, enhancing global relevance. There was what can be improved or a critical observations for concerning the concept paper. So the first one was lack of practical solutions, as many as they said that in May we will open the case studies and sharing details from the regions. The second one was the limited use of technology more emphasis is needed on training educators in digital tools, as well as more tailored strategies needed for women, elderly, and marginalized communities. The environmental issues, more actionable steps for sustainable education should be included. And there is also a local context missing. Example, when we will hear or we will invite focal point to share their case studies from diverse regions, it should be really from diverse regions, would enhance this report. And we have also the theory versus practices gap. We have recommendations. We need really to have clearer implementation strategy. And also there is needs of more practical strategies for global collaborations and local and regional collaborations, as also Nicolas mentioned today. So the concept note does not reflect enough of the changing realities of world politics. We are witnessing a huge shift of political power, not knowing yet how the new world order will look like. So GRALE should analyze this new world reality and its repercussions on aid. We don't think that we are doing ourselves if we pretend that nothing has changed and stick to objectives to set ourselves in Marrakesh Framework for Action example that are being undermined from many sides, as well as the MFA still need to be reviewed in light of the current changes. These two issues are major importance to tackle. I will go for some recommendation to improve the report. So enhancing the research methodology to improve transparency and use advanced analytical tools. We need to also, there is another recommendation to include for sure the case studies, including case studies and regional analysis, advancing digitalization, provide strategies for artificial intelligence integration and digital inclusion. And the final one was the sustainable funding models, how the proposed private sector partnership for financial sustainability. And when we also tackled the four main topics, and this is for Nicolas mentioned today, the peace issues, which wasn't included in the concept paper. So also we tackle the crisis and conflict situation. So the adult learning and digitalizations, I don't want to repeat, but I can say that while digitalization is inevitable, we as adult learning and education professionals and practitioners should carefully assess which support of digitalization is in the interest of less developed countries. You know that many of the Arab countries, they have no internet access, they don't have electricity. So even in other words, in Africa, but mainly because of the war here in the Arab region. So this is a very important, and as also Katarina mentioned this issues. Coming to the green economy, I'm really debriefing what's happening. So the recommendation was to integrate green economic topics into adult education curricula using 3 approaches. So separate courses on environmental issues, green themes embedded in existing subjects, and sustainability concepts, including in broader education program. There is many recommendations. I will not go through because of the time, but we can have recommendations how to train educators on climate change issues, to integrate them into teaching, raise awareness about water conservation, secure funding, encourage cross-country collaboration, and promoting environmental education for youth, and how to strengthen the regional cooperation and create knowledge sharing networks across the Arab countries. For the first themes, which was the crisis and conflict situations, here we will not, we will not forget the people from Palestine, the refugees, the displacement people, the minorities, as well as the women. So we have lack of resources. Education funding is often diverted to emergency aid. We have political instability. We are living in a conflict zones. Government are struggling to maintain education system. And these are the key challenges. We have the psychological trauma, war and crisis, affected mental health, making learning difficult, and for sure, the gender inequality. The women and girls are more likely to be excluded from education during this crisis. We have some recommendations about this to ensure education is part of humanitarian response in crisis affected regions. So we need also another recommendation to expand digital and mobile learning to reach the displaced and vulnerable populations, how to train educators to support learners facing trauma and crisis, and how to develop flexible learning programs to promote peace education as a tool for social stability and conflict prevention, and to increase funding for education in emergencies. So these discussions also highlight the need for a stronger collaboration between governments, education institutions, civil society, and the private sector to expand access to quality education for all adults. We also proposed, lastly, additional topics to the concept paper. So the psychological support, we have 17 themes, but I can say the psychological support, integrative education and life connection, funding and sustainability, teacher support and capacity building, cultural and regional disparities, non-formal education and soft skills, crisis and conflict education, which is we really need to more examine education in war zone like Palestine, Lebanon, Yemen, education for refugees and displaced population, financial literacy and inclusion. These are the major topics that propose additional topics. Really, thank you for this.
It's such a you've done the homework already very much, and so I guess it's interesting how to be able to see from two different parts of the world in terms of how you, Elsy, have gone forward. And actually, before we even organized ICAE, you already had that, and you already had organized. And so part of that, hopefully, that would be a guide in terms of how we can actually also localize, contextualize the issues around the different issues. And for you, as you said, part of that is the whole idea of not just peace, but actual conflict, without having to forget the issues of gender, sustainability, and all the other broader things that we talk about. So thank you very much, Elsy, and thank you very much, Cecilia. Two very different experiences in terms of engaging, and experiences also in terms of how, therefore, I think this presentation that Elsy had will inform their members in terms of responding to the open consultation. And so I'd like to be able to, before our interpreters have to leave, so Katarina, just a last word from you. You're muted, Katarina.
Sorry. I wanted to make a short presentation, but I will not make a presentation. I will just show the last slide of the presentation and invite you to the campaign. Okay, so sorry. There is a kind of confusion. Okay, so we will make a 10 days campaign, 10 days of action of inviting other people, colleagues, members, partners of ICAE to contribute. And there will be, this is a reminder of the campaign that we did for the Marrakesh Framework for Action. You might remember that. So here are just a few photos to remind you on our campaign that was done on Twitter and Facebook and so on. Here is one of our dear colleagues from Peru who also contributed to the campaign. So what we will do at our Facebook and Twitter, we will post some messages and we invite you to do the same. This is the hashtag Make Our Voices Heard. Please, whatever media you use, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, I'm not sure about TikTok if you do it, or this is also included, Twitter and the others. So if you contribute to the campaign, if you have a message, it could be even a simple one, do contribute, it's important, Confita is important, or anything like this. Please send us a link and use the hashtag. And additionally, if you want to point out some of the elements from the from this concept note or from your contribution, if you find that some of the topics is extremely important, then you can make a statement. It could be 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes, probably not more than 2 minutes. Then please do it, and then again send us a link to the media that you've done it, so we can repost it or republish it. So it was very successful the last time, as I said, when we did it for the Marrakesh Framework for Action. I hope it will be the same with our campaign.
Okay, with the turnout today, I think it will be very successful. Again, please tell your colleagues that we apologize that we were not able to fit everybody in the room. This is something that really is very new for us. And so next time we promise in terms of increasing, but again, we are recording. And so we'd like to thank again our hosts, particularly CEAAL, for organizing Rosa, for all the organizing of the interpreters. Can we give the interpreters a round of applause and a waving? Thank you, Rosa. Thank you to the interpreters. Thank you to our presenters. Again, we acknowledge Nicolas, who's, I guess we had to leave because he's not ICAE Civil Society, Katarina, Uwe, Elsy, and Cecilia. We look forward to hearing from you. Please don't forget to share your responses to the open consultation to us. Make sure you submit the open consultation and share your feedback to us, because this will help us enrich our advocacy document. And as we say, our voices are not just to be heard for the open consultation. We want to make sure our voices are heard throughout the GRALE process and throughout, as you said, this whole MFA process as we lead up to the midterm review of Confintia 7. Okay, thank you very much. Again, maraming salamat. So we'll switch off the recording if people want to chat again in different languages. And thank you very much, Ricarda, for the background support.